Just imagine this for a second. You're a pilot. It's December 5th, 1945. The weather's beautiful, a perfect day for flying. You're in charge of 5 U.S. Navy bombers. Just a routine training mission, 3 hours, in and out. Everything is going exactly to plan. And then, it isn't. Your compass just starts spinning, totally useless. Then your backup compass does the very same thing. You're lost. I mean, completely, terrifyingly lost over this huge, empty ocean. And this isn't fiction, this is the real story of Flight 19.
So let's just walk through this timeline, because every detail here just gets stranger. At 2:10 in the afternoon, they take off. Everything's fine. But by 4 p.m., not even 2 hours later, the flight leader, a really experienced pilot by the way, is on the radio saying his compasses are shot, both of them. You can just feel the confusion building. Then, at 4:56, he makes this critical decision. He thinks they're way out over the Gulf of Mexico, so he tells everyone to head east to get back to Florida. But here's the thing. Some of his own crew think he's dead wrong. They think they're already east of Florida and need to fly west. The last thing anyone ever hears is a faint, jumbled radio call. And then, just static.
27. The original 5 planes had 14 men on board. But the horror of that day wasn't over. A search and rescue plane, a Mariner aircraft with 13 people on it, was sent out to find them, and it also just disappeared. Vanished right out of the sky, no distress call, no wreckage, no bodies. In a single evening, 27 men were just gone.
And this is where it all clicks into place. See, this didn't just happen in some random patch of ocean. The story of Flight 19 and the plane sent to rescue them became the origin story, the founding myth for one of the most persistent and frightening legends of our time, the Bermuda Triangle.
So what are we actually talking about geographically? Well, it's this huge, kind of loosely drawn triangle in the Atlantic. The 3 points are Florida, the island of Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. We're talking about more than 500,000 square miles of open water, a place where for hundreds of years people have claimed that strange things happen.
You know, what's really interesting is the name Bermuda Triangle is pretty new. It only showed up in a magazine back in 1964. But sailors had names for this part of the world long before that. They called it the Graveyard of the Atlantic, or the Sea of Doom. This fear, this mystique, it's been around for a very, very long time. And believe me, Flight 19 wasn't the first big unexplained loss out there. Let's rewind to 1918. The USS Cyclops, one of the absolute biggest ships in the U.S. Navy at the time, was sailing right through this area. It had 306 people on board, plus thousands of tons of cargo. It sent one last perfectly normal message, and then it was just gone. Poof! One of the largest naval ships of its era vanished on a perfectly clear day.
And of course, you get the ghost stories. The legend of the Ellen Austin is a classic. The story goes that in 1881, it found another ship just drifting, totally empty but in perfect condition. So the captain puts a few of his own guys on it to sail it back to port. Well, a big storm hits, separates the 2 ships, and when the Ellen Austin finds the ghost ship again, its crew was gone. It's a fantastic spooky story. But we gotta be honest, it's almost certainly just that, a tall tale, a legend that's been passed around and probably changed 100 times.
So this all leads to the big question, right? After hearing all these stories, you just have to ask, what is actually happening in these waters? Is it supernatural? Are there forces at play that we just don't understand? We've heard the chilling tales, so now let's start looking for some answers.
And yeah, the theories get pretty wild. You hear everything from alien spaceships sucking up planes to giant sea monsters dragging ships down to the depths. They make for amazing movies for sure, but they don't really give us any real solid answers. For that, we need to look at some ideas that are a bit more grounded.
Okay, so here's one of the first really solid scientific clues. It's something called an agonic line. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. You know how Earth has 2 north poles, right? There's the geographic one at the very top of the globe, and then there's the magnetic one, which is where your compass actually points. Well, an agonic line is one of the very few places on Earth where those 2 norths line up perfectly. And wouldn't you know it, one of these lines used to pass right through the Bermuda Triangle. If you're in a plane like Flight 19 relying on a magnetic compass, that could cause some serious confusion.
And let's be real, this is just a dangerous part of the world to travel through, period. The water is full of hidden, shallow areas called shoals that can rip a ship apart. It's also basically Hurricane Alley, one of the most active storm regions on the planet. And then you have the Gulf Stream. It's like a massive, powerful river flowing through the ocean that can grab any wreckage and scatter it for hundreds of miles in just a few hours, making it look like a ship just vanished into thin air.
Now, this is a pretty cool, if terrifying, scientific theory. Methane hydrates. Think of them as huge fields of frozen methane gas sitting on the ocean floor. Scientists have shown in labs that if one of these fields were to suddenly erupt, it would create this massive plume of gas bubbles. This could actually make the water density drop so fast that a ship floating above it would lose all buoyancy and just sink instantly, like a rock, with no time to even send an SOS. It's a wild idea, and it's scientifically possible, but we have zero proof that this has ever actually happened to a specific ship.
So, we've looked at magnetism, we've looked at weather, we've even looked at gas bubbles from the bottom of the sea. But what if the real answer, the key to the whole mystery, has nothing to do with the ocean at all? What if it's all in our heads?
To get what I mean, we need to talk about this funny little quirk of the human brain called the Bader-Meinhof effect, or the frequency illusion. You've definitely felt this before. You know when you learn a new word, or you buy a new car, let's say a blue SUV, and then all of a sudden you start seeing blue SUVs everywhere? There aren't actually more of them on the road. Your brain has just been primed to notice them.
And that appears to be exactly what happened with the Bermuda Triangle. Before 1964, a plane crash off the coast of Florida was just that, a plane crash. But after the name Bermuda Triangle was invented, suddenly every single accident that happened inside those imaginary lines became proof of the mystery. We started paying extra attention to those incidents, while completely ignoring all the similar tragedies that happen in every other busy, well-traveled part of the ocean.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Let's look at what the actual experts say. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, could not be more clear on this. They state, flat out, that there is no evidence that mysterious disappearances happen any more frequently in the Bermuda Triangle than anywhere else.
And then there's the U.S. Coast Guard. You know, the people who are actually out there risking their lives on search and rescue missions. Their official position? They don't even recognize this so-called Bermuda Triangle as a real place of specific danger. To them, it's just another part of the Atlantic Ocean that's busy and gets a lot of storms. That's it.
So, if it's not uniquely dangerous, why all the stories? Well, the answer is just simple math. The Triangle is basically a superhighway for ships and planes going between the Americas, the Caribbean, and Europe. So you take a massive amount of traffic, you add in frequent violent hurricanes, and what do you get? You get more accidents. It's not a higher percentage of bad things happening, it's just a higher total number because so many people are passing through.
In fact, if you look at the actual data, the whole myth just completely crumbles. Back in 2013, the World Wildlife Fund did a big study to find the 10 most dangerous places in the world for shipping based on real accident reports. Number 1 was the South China Sea. The Mediterranean and the North Sea were up there too. And the Bermuda Triangle? It didn't even crack the top 10. It's not even on the list.
So let's just lay it all out. The mystery of compasses going wild? That's just natural magnetic variation. The strange lights that people like Christopher Columbus saw? Probably a meteor. And ships and planes that seem to vanish without a trace? That's the Gulf Stream, a current so powerful it can hide the evidence across a vast expanse of ocean. When you look closely, for every spooky mystery, there's a pretty logical, rational explanation.
So, if we have all these logical answers, if the science is clear, and the statistics just don't back it up, why do we still love the idea of the Bermuda Triangle so much? It makes you wonder, right? Maybe the biggest mystery isn't what's hiding at the bottom of the ocean. Maybe it's about why we humans sometimes prefer a good, scary story over the simple truth. What do you think?